Hi guys, welcome to my review of the season 6 finale of Once Upon a Time, The Final Battle. Okay, already I'm really worried that I'm going to start crying in this review. And I said that in the last one and I was fine and I made my way through the entire episode review without bursting into tears. But I am just going to warn you from the get-go with this one, there is a very good chance that I will tear up at some point because this episode meant a lot to me. This entire show has meant a lot to me, and this really is the finale of the show that we've known. You know, it is coming back for season 7, which I'm going to discuss later, possibly in an entirely separate video, just because I know I'm going to talk for a long time about the finale and I don't want to keep you here for an hour at a time. But yeah, so this really is the finale of the show that we've known, and so it's going to be something entirely different next season. So to me and to a lot of people, this is the end of the show that has meant so much to us for the past 6 years. Whew. Okay, let's get going. I guess that the first thing that I'm going to say is that I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I thought that it was the perfect finale, and to be completely honest, I would have been sad that it was over, and I would miss it just as much as I'm going to miss it right now, because as I say, it's a slightly different show that's coming back, but I would have missed it a lot. But if they had ended it with this episode, if this had been the show finale, I think it would have been perfect. If they'd just taken off that last scene, which obviously is the lead in to season 7, if they'd taken that off and taken off the intro to that at the start of the episode and just kind of ended it on them all sitting at that table in Granny's, which the very thought of makes me want to bawl my eyes out, that I think would have been just the most beautiful and perfect finale. And yeah, okay, so all I want is for them to give us more adorable Captain Swan moments, and to see Snow and Charming raising Neil, and you know, see a happy ending hopefully for Regina, and see that bond with her and Zelina grow. Obviously I want that, I want to see that, but I know that a show can't go on forever, and I totally appreciate that the cast have dedicated 6 years of their lives to this show. It's a long time. So I get why, you know, particularly for Jen, who was asked to come back and decided not to, I get it, because if I was her and I'd looked at that script and I was thinking, I don't want to keep myself here for too much longer because it's already been 6 years and she's working on so many different things. If I'd read that scene where they were all happy and they were all together and everything finally felt like this lovely new beginning for them, I would have felt that that was the appropriate time for me to step away from the show, because it felt like closure to me. Okay, so I'll just start at the beginning of the episode, I guess. I think my thoughts will probably jump around because, as per usual, I have not written any sort of script for this because it's just not how I work with these videos. I like to just do it on a chatty, rambly, whatever pops into my head method, and hopefully remember to cover everything. But I guess we'll start at the beginning with the flash forward. So we're obviously seeing Henry as an older man, and this is his kid. They're in the Enchanted Forest, and obviously if for whatever reason that's the realm that he is raising this daughter in. I'm intrigued to see how that happens actually and how he gets there. But that was quite a nice lead in to what season 7 is going to be, and I was quite pleased that they just kind of bookended it with that. So they gave us that intro and they gave us that ending right on the very ending scene, but the rest of it was focused on our core group of characters and the situation that was happening with them right now. Obviously this episode had serious pilot and season 1 vibes to it. It was so nostalgic, and I had so much of a connection to that initial episode where Henry just needed Emma to believe, and that was what he needed her to do to break that first curse. It was really interesting to parallel this final battle and this huge finale with where everything all started. Henry was so cute when he was just this little tiny boy in season 1, and I can't believe how much he's grown up. Like, for Jared, it must just be so strange to have lived this huge chunk of your life growing up on the set of this show with these people, and he's just been so good and such a great little actor, and he's grown so much over the past 6 years of being in this show, and I loved getting to feel those flashback vibes to that initial season where we got to know these characters to begin with, and to really highlight how far Emma in particular, but how far all of them have come over these past 6 years. I think my favourite thing about the episode as a whole was all the little flashbacks and references to really important moments from the past. So like, I'll talk about this in more detail when I get to that section, but obviously the beanstalk like I just started to howl at that point. Like I cried a lot throughout the entire episode, but I just started to bawl my eyes out at that point because I was like, oh, that was such a hugely pivotal, important, iconic episode. Tallahassee was one of the biggest, well, for me, and I'm sure any Captain Swan shippers. It was just so wonderful to me that they did that. I just loved that they brought that in. So obviously waking up from the Black Fairy's curse to find that Emma was in a mental hospital and that she has obviously been locked up for indulging in Henry's like fantasies, as it were, in season 1, was, I thought, a really interesting way to go, because actually Emma and I had a conversation a while ago about how, isn't it funny that my best friend's name is also my favourite character's name? Must be something about the name. But anyway, we'd had a conversation a while ago about, like, we were joking obviously, but we were saying, oh, can you imagine if at some point it did turn out that all this was in Henry's head and like none of them actually were fairy tale characters and they put this really bleak twist on it. And so obviously for that to be the direction that they went in this finale, I thought was a really clever way of doing it. I also thought it was really interesting to have the Black Fairy as the evil queen figure in this, and this idea that she was the one who was raising Henry, and I thought that was great. I also thought it was really interesting that in this instance we had Rumpel pretending to buy into it and Henry realising that, like, obviously that was rubbish and that he wasn't under this curse because he's Rumpel, he's the dark one, he's never probably going to be affected by these things. But I thought that having that flashback and that throwback to those early episodes, but replacing that evil queen figure with the Black Fairy. Jamie Murray, by the way, just was amazing. I thought she was fantastic. Don't know about you guys, you can let me know in the comments down below, but I just thought she was incredible. She just made your skin crawl when she was in there talking to Emma and trying to desperately get her convinced that the best thing for Henry would be for her to burn that book. So seeing Snow and Charming and Killian and Regina and all the rest of them waking up in the Enchanted Forest and realising at that point that what is going to happen if Emma stops believing and she destroys this book is that the Black Fairy's curse is going to destroy all the magical realms and all of them in it, was, again, I think a really interesting way to go, and something that, like, even though you know realistically it's not going to happen, really started to stress me out. I also thought that it was a really nice way of doing it because it allowed for characters like Aladdin and Jasmine to appear in it and have those moments with them, bring all these kind of lands together. I thought that was really good. So I think the direction I'm going to go at the moment is just down the Captain Charming line, because the scenes between David and Killian in this episode were so good, and it just made me so sad that, like, we've had a few, but I really wish, see if they did like a Captain Charming spin-off, like if the next season was just the two of them, I would totally watch that, because I just think that they're so good on screen together. And I think because Colin and Josh are really good friends in real life, I think they play off each other really nicely, and because they've had such a complicated history and because things have been so difficult for them in the past, I thought pairing them together for this last episode, because Killian was with Emma and we didn't really get to see much of them together in this episode, which is a issue that I have with it, but because we didn't get to see all that much of them together, I'm glad that it was David that he was paired up with instead. There were just some absolute crackers of lines in this episode, like when they were standing at the bottom of the table and up the beanstalk and trying to figure out how to get up onto it to get the magic bean, and Killian had said, oh, you're going to trust all of our lives to a pirate, and he said, oh no, I'm going to trust my son, huge pause, in law. And like Killian's face was just absolutely perfect. I loved that. And then obviously there was another slightly similar moment with that later in the episode where Snow thought she was going to find Charming under all the sort of debris, and then she found that it was Killian, and he was like, called her mummy, which was slightly awkward and weird, but like Jasmine's face at that moment was also an absolute picture. So I liked that they were kind of having that time together that was separate from Emma. Now that they're married, it was just quite nice for, in as horrible circumstances as they were, for them to have those little kind of bonding moments together. The script for this episode I thought was perfect, and it always is. It's always very good. There's very rarely moments in Once Upon a Time scripts that I feel are clunky or haven't worked, but this one in particular, there were just a couple of moments where some of them had speeches, like for example during that whole beanstalk episode, when Killian says to David that he and Emma were never, I might cry at this point actually, because this is one of the points that really got me, but that they were never like a predestined, fated to be together love story, that they have worked so hard to get to where they are, and they've fought so hard, and they've won, and they're finally got married. And that's exactly how I have always felt about this love story. I love that idea of like, oh, you were kind of destined to be together and all that, and you know, like the Snow and Charming inevitability kind of thing. And I think that what they did in the last episode, where they had all of the songs that were within Emma to help give her the strength to fight when she was on her own. Obviously Killian, one of the songs was his, and so the way that I kind of saw that, and the fact that one of them was Regina's, just meant that all these people were meant to be in her life. So I do actually like that, and I like the idea that, you know, all of these people were meant to be a family eventually. But I also feel like what they did with them was they didn't have it be that total inevitability that they were always going to be together, and they did have it that it was a fight and a struggle, and that there were really difficult moments. But also I think that they did nice things. This is just getting totally off this episode, but they did really nice things with this relationship. Like, I liked the fact that when they opened the door in the underworld, and it was, you know, the door was only going to open if it was true love, I liked that it wasn't a true love's kiss situation. Like, obviously true love's kiss is lovely, but I liked that theirs was something slightly different. I liked that it wasn't just like, oh, you kissed and the magic happened, and well, that sounds a bit weird, but like, you know, that was what the reaction was. Again, that was another fight. It was that Killian was like on fire, and Emma didn't have her heart, and so she was ready to like collapse. And her test was that she fought through that pain and through that I'm about to die, and risked her own life to save his, and that was their moment of like true love confirmation. And I think that that was really nice, and just really reflective of what he's saying, that, you know, they adore each other, and they're married, and it's lovely. But it was never just as simple as, oh, those two are meant to be together, so, you know, they'll always be together. There was so much work and effort, and so many tests and so many obstacles for them, but they stuck together through it all. And they didn't do what they do in other shows where things get tricky, and so they go, oh, we don't want the audience to get bored, so we'll split them up and, you know, get them back together eventually. Through all of these obstacles and through all of these difficulties, they stayed together, and that is why they will always be my favourite fictional couple. I do think that I've said this in my last video, I'd be very surprised if anyone ever writes a love story again that is as significant and as meaningful to me as this one. And, you know, I would love it if people would, because I love when something really resonates with you. But for me, I do genuinely think that this is probably always going to be the one that's had the biggest impact on me. So yeah, I love that. I love that moment, and I love that the moment where he was saying to David, like, I know she's your daughter, but she's my wife. It's got to be me. You're like, oh, he's calling her his wife. He's calling her his wife. I wish that we'd got a moment to hear her call him her husband. I mean, it's like, at the end of the day, like, marriage is lovely. It's not a necessity. It's not the be all and end all of a relationship. But I do really like the idea that now they're able to like refer to each other as husband and wife. It's very cute. So yeah, I really like that. Another moment in the Enchanted Forest scenario that genuinely made me start to bawl my eyes out was when the evil queen was willing to sacrifice herself for all of them to get back to Storybrooke. So she was going to fight off the magic for as long as she possibly could. At the time that Emma still hadn't started to believe again, she was willing to put herself in the firing line, and she was willing to go, do you know what? After everything that's happened, and after everything I did in the past, and after everything that you've done now for me, to Regina, I want to do this for you guys. And that, oh, that genuinely broke my heart. I think seeing what a long way she's come, and I think that was, oh, I think I'm gonna cry right now. Seeing that shift in that character, and seeing what happened in the earlier half of the season, where Regina split herself into two, and so it was the evil side and the good side, and you knew that wasn't how it worked, and that it was more complicated than that. And you saw throughout the earlier parts of this season that battle with herself, to start to realise that it wasn't all black and white, and that there was good and bad in both sides of her, and that the sort of the Regina that had let love into her life and had found this family gave part of her heart to the other half of her to try and balance that out. That was also lovely. But I think the fact that she, as the villain, in quotes, in this scenario was the one who was willing to step up to the plate and go, do you know what, I'm going to put my other half, I guess, first and try and save them. I think was just a really lovely way to highlight the fact that there isn't just a good and a bad side of you, it's all interconnected. What's this? But it is, it's all interconnected, and you're all, you know, those two sides of you can't really exist in isolation. It's not just, you can't just take the bad out and throw it away. It's all so messy and complicated, and that's what makes us human, and I thought that was lovely. I loved that we had one more chance and one more opportunity to see Snow and Charming find each other again and say those iconic lines about "did you ever doubt that I would," because those are just such huge parts of the show. There's these iconic lines and moments and experiences that these characters have had that I just love that they brought them all in. Like when David asked Killian about the beanstalk and he said, oh, you've climbed this before, and he said when, and he said, oh, it was with Emma, it was our first adventure together. So you had references to that, and then you had references to Regina's past, as I say, with the evil queen and those difficulties that she'd had accepting herself. And this was like the epitome of acceptance, I think, at this point. And then with Snow and Charming, seeing those moments of their relationship in the past being reflected again, just showing that no matter what happens, they'll always fight for each other and they'll always find each other. And oh, like, I know that the whole point of Once Upon a Time is about hope, but I just felt like that their story, more so probably than anyone else's, I think is the most hopeful. And again, it just sort of fills you with joy because they're together in real life, and they've got their little boys, and they fell in love as their characters fell in love, and oh, it just adds this whole other like weirdly special dimension to it, I think. So obviously back in Storybook we have Emma, who is locked up, and Henry's desperately fighting once again. It just feels like he's been pulled back to that time when he was 10 years old and his desperation to get his mum to come back to where she's supposed to be and be the saviour and be the person she was meant to be. And he did it, and he got her there, and he got her to that point. And then for the evil fairy, mashup of the evil queen and the black fairy, but for the black fairy to take that from him and to take that from Emma and have her stripped back to that person who just couldn't believe, or to have her be someone who had chosen to believe and then had it ripped away from her. And I just thought that was very nicely done. I felt so much for Emma being in there and just seeing, you know, what could have potentially happened. I mean, obviously, like, the likelihood of her getting locked up is probably not very high, but what could have happened if she hadn't eventually just let herself open up to this family and this world. And that sort of isolation, again, just is heartbreaking. Jen, as always, was just incredible. I have no words for how much I love Jennifer Morrison. I really don't, and she is so talented, and she's done such an incredible job with this character. The writers have done such a wonderful job creating her, but Jen has done so much with her to make her this person that you just feel so connected to. Well, I certainly do. And all of them have done that. Lana is stupendous as Regina. I can't imagine anyone else playing Snow and Charming. Colin O'Donoghue just stole my heart from season 3. I liked him in season 2, but like as of season 3, like I was never looking back. They are all so talented. Jared Gilmore growing up on that set, seeing how far he's come. Robert Carlyle is just an absolute icon. Rebecca Mader, I can't get away with how much I adore Rebecca Mader. She's incredible. And everyone who's ever played even a small part in Once Upon a Time. I did a tweet thread the other night thanking basically everyone that I could think of who'd ever been in it, because I am that person. Because they've all been so important to this show. Again, in terms of the season 1 vibes, I really liked that when Emma got out, when Henry kind of broke her out, she was in her red leather jacket with her hair down. I know that sounds so silly and like such a small thing, but it was so reflective of that first episode and just felt so nostalgic. And when she went back to Boston, I really hoped she wasn't going to go back to Boston. So when she burned that book, and the last thing that she saw as it was burning was Killian's face, and you could just about see like a flicker of like, there's something that doesn't feel 100% right about this to me. And those like flashes when Henry had her up on the roof where he sort of made her go and stand just where she'd literally just said her vows the day before. And although it was, you know, she felt like she'd been in this institution for 2 years, but for him to take her there, and then you saw that moment where she suddenly had these flashes of her and Killian's relationship, and everything was just, oh, so heartbreaking, and at those moments you're going, please hold on to that and please use that as like fuel to realise that Henry's telling the truth and that you have to believe him. And just like it was in season 1, it just took a little bit more time. So Rumpel and his mother, the fact that he killed her, I am very glad of, which sounds awful, but it's what he needed to do at the very end of all this. I was talking to my friend about this the other day, and I said that I know this is not going to be a popular opinion, and I know that a lot of people will not agree with this, which is fine. Everyone views this their own way, and this is sort of linked to the ending scene and what happened further on in the episode. But for me, if I had been writing Once Upon a Time, if they'd employed me to write the story, I would have had Rumpel die at the end. I've said this for a long time, but particularly over the past season and a half, I would have had Rumpel sacrifice himself. And not in the way of like, not death in the way that it's been in the past where, you know, you come back to life or you become another dark one or anything like that. Like, I would have had him like absolutely no coming back, Robin style sacrifice, gone, because he's done so many bad things and he's hurt people in such damaging ways over the past couple of seasons, particularly Belle, and that's what I will get to towards the end of this review. I think that the way to fully sort of redeem him, or the way that you could best redeem a character like that, would be to have them give up their life. And in that instance, it wouldn't just be for Gideon or for Belle, it would be for everyone. And I think that after everything that he's done, that to me would have been the way to move forward, because much as though he made the right call, he finally did the right thing and he chose to save everyone else and sacrifice his mother because she's the person who had done all of this damage to him and to everyone else. While he made that right call, there were moments earlier in season 6 where he said and did things to Belle that I will really struggle to ever fully get past. Interestingly, along those lines though, if you've watched the special, the hour-long special or 40-minute special that aired before the episode, I watched it online the other night. It is excellent. Just seeing the cast talk about the show so joyfully is so lovely. But Robert Carlyle was talking about the fact that the show, it really for a character like Rumpel, has been about showing that everyone's worth a second chance and that everyone can be redeemed and can choose to do the right thing. And it's all about having hope for these people and giving these people something to fight for and to be willing to do the right thing for. And I agree with that, I really do. And that's the whole point of Once Upon a Time, is that it's a show about hope, or it should be a show about hope. But for Rumpel, I don't know. I realise why they couldn't do it, because for season 7 they wanted Robert to come back, and he's a huge part of the show, an iconic part of the show, and I do understand that they wouldn't want to move forward without him. But for me, and it's what my friend and I were both saying, the way that Killian has redeemed himself and the way that Regina has redeemed herself, it feels different to me. But that's just my opinion and happens to be my friend's opinion. Let me know in the comments down below whether or not you agree with that. But yeah, I'm really glad that he did make that choice and that he chose to get rid of his mother. And at that moment you're thinking like, she's gone, but what does that mean for the curse overall? And obviously at that point, the fact that she's gone, you know, she's the one who took Gideon's heart, and so what's going to happen is that he is going to do whatever it was that she commanded him to do, which was to kill the saviour. So when Emma comes back and we all rejoice because she's come back, you're still thinking, this is going to end in heartache either way, because at that point you're kind of thinking there's no way that they can both survive this. And to me, I kind of knew they couldn't kill Emma. I'd seen a lot of people tweeting and being like, if they kill Emma, I'll never forgive them. But I sort of knew that they wouldn't kill Emma at this point. This whole show really has been about her journey, and to end by killing her, I just feel it would have just ripped any joy out of it. So obviously when Rumpel had killed his mother and that sort of part of the curse had been lifted, and so you see Emma remembering everything and coming back to herself, that was very necessary, obviously. And then you'd had that lovely reunion where obviously, you know, the realms had been saved by Emma believing again and getting back to knowing who everyone was and who she was and what she was fighting for. And so getting to see them coming back and having that lovely reunion moment where you see her getting reunited with her parents and reunited with Killian, and like having, even though it's like really dire circumstances, having that little like jokey like, oh, some honeymoon, huh, like little joke moment, and him saying that they'll get there, which they blooming well better have got there. They better have had a nice honeymoon. Whether or not we get to see it on screen, they better have got like just 5 minutes to themselves, or, you know, like preferably a couple of weeks holiday. they deserve it after everything that they've been through. But yeah, I loved that little, it was very quick, but I loved that little moment. And I also loved that she did exactly what she did when he came back from the underworld, when Zeus sent him back, and she kind of just flung herself at him and was like kissing him all over his face. I kind of loved that she did that again. That just felt like another little throwback to a really special, important moment in the past. So that speech that Regina gave Emma just before she was, you know, going into this battle, I think was really important, and I think it would have meant a lot to a lot of people. And I think it was just such a lovely way to reflect how their friendship and their relationship between these two characters has grown and developed over the past 6 seasons. It's true, they despised each other to begin with, and they couldn't even bear to look at each other, and now they're at this point where they're like co-parenting a kid, and they've got this trust in each other, and they know that if they need each other, they're always going to be there. And I think that that was a very nicely written moment. So yeah, the actual final battle between Emma and Gideon just was really stressful, because as I say, no matter what's going to happen with that, like if Emma had killed Gideon, that's Belle's kid, like Rumpel and Belle's child would have gone, and so that was awful. But if she was, you know, to get killed, don't even start me. So that was very stressful for a few minutes. So the moment where you, like, as I say, I never actually thought that Emma was going to be dead, but it did look as if Gideon had kind of prevailed, was incredibly stressful. By that point I was just like, I mean, I'd cried for half the episode, but at that point I was just like a sobbing wreck. And then the very fact that, much like the end of season 1 where Emma, it was true love's kiss for Emma kissing Henry and bringing him back, the fact that it was the same thing that happened now, only reversed, and it was Henry's kiss that brought Emma back, and they all got reunited. A lot of feels. It was just so nicely done. I'm so impressed with it, I really am. I think that the way that they tied everything in together, and they had everything from the past storylines all threaded through it, was just so well done. So as if I wasn't emotional enough, this is the bit that surprised me, because as I say, I've always kind of felt like the way to properly redeem Rumpel would have been to probably kill him in the end. However, I know for the Rumbell shippers, this is a story that you want to see a happy ending for these characters. And so when they were down underground looking for his heart, thinking that they could get his heart back to him and everything would be okay, and you hear that baby crying, like right now I think I'm on the verge. I was like sobbing my heart out at that point, because for Belle particularly, but for them as a family, to have that second chance after everything that's happened was just so beautiful. So of course now we come to the final scenes, where we see Snow and Charming with Neil, this happy little family, and Snow going back to working at the school and being a teacher the way that she was way back at the beginning of the show. The character that we knew when we started out was kind of perfect. Obviously I love the fact that Captain Swan are now going to be working together. What a team. That's another spin-off that I would obviously watch immediately. A Captain Swan spin-off where they're solving crime together, working together. The fact he's got his badge. So the fact that they're in the bug together, Emma's yellow bug, and they've got the police siren and all that, but it's just that they're actually going to be working together, and she just looks so happy and relaxed. And he says again something, you can read what he's saying, even though there's not actually any sound at that point, it's just music over it, but he's saying happy honeymoon, and she's laughing, and they're just adorably cute. That was lovely. Could have had a kiss, I'm not gonna lie, they could have given us one more. However, I do think that it's quite apt that the last proper Captain Swan kiss that we got in this season, I'm saying that because hopefully we'll get one in next season, but it's kind of apt that it was the wedding. I think that was the last one, but I wouldn't have said no to another one. So them driving off together in the car was so cute, loved that. And then that moment in Granny's, that destroyed me. That was it. That final scene in Granny's where they are all sitting together, and you see Rumpel and Belle come in with the baby, and Emma's so excited to welcome them in and see Belle with this baby that she's now getting the chance to be the mum to that she always wanted to be. And, you know, hopefully that baby is going to have the life that Gideon, the Gideon that was with the Black Fairy, never had. And everyone who was important to them was all there. You've got Regina and Zelina with baby Robin, and you've got Snow and Charming with Neil, and Emma and Killian and Henry, and they're all sitting together, and Granny's serving up dinner for them, and Rumbell have got their baby back, and oh my god, it just like, I just like wept for a long time. I've cried at the finale of a lot of TV shows, and I cry throughout a lot of shows. I get very, very emotionally involved. I'm sure you're shocked, but I don't think I've ever cried as much as I cried watching this. So I'm going to be very careful with how I phrase this now. I've tweeted a lot about this, so if you want to kind of read some of my thoughts, they're on my Twitter account. And maybe I'll write a blog post, because at least in a blog post I won't, well, I'll maybe cry right now, but at least you won't be able to see it. Yeah, I can't believe that it's over. I really, really can't, and I am going to miss these characters more than I can actually see. This cast and these characters, I'm so sorry. This cast and these characters have meant more to me than you could imagine, and I'm just so grateful that it came into my life when it did. I had no idea when I watched that first episode back in 2011 how much of an impact this show was going to have on me, and how much these characters were going to mean to me, and how invested and involved I was going to get, and how life-changing the character of Emma Swan was going to be to me. Like, I'm literally wearing my Emma Swan necklace right now, and I've been thinking about this. I probably won't, because I don't think that I would ever get a tattoo, because I've said this before, getting a tattoo for me probably wouldn't be a good idea. My ears did not respond well to being pierced, so I don't think that getting ink permanently injected into my skin would be a good idea. But just to sum up how important this character is to me, if I was to get a tattoo at some point in my life, I think I would get like a little tiny swan, because I've been thinking about this and I'm like, genuinely, that's how important this character has become to me. So yeah, big thank you to all of you guys who've watched these videos, and I'm saying this as if I'm not going to review season 7. I am. I have complicated feelings about it, but I am going to come back and review season 7, so you know, this is not the end. But just thank you so much to all of you guys who've watched these videos and who've supported my reviews, and who have, you know, left comments and got involved in the conversation. That's another incredible thing about this show, that I just can't believe that I've, you know, had so many amazing, fun, interesting, hilarious conversations with people online in the fandom around these characters and around these stories, and that in itself is just, I think, something really special. Season 7, as I say, I have mixed feelings about it. I think I'm going to make a separate video on that, but I do quite like the fact that they've chosen to kind of go down the same lines, but do it with Henry and have it a sort of generational thing. I have heard that obviously it's Colin, Lana and Robert that are coming back, so we're going to have Kelly and Regina and Rumpel, but apparently they have different identities. Don't know how I feel about that. It's another curse scenario, obviously. Lucy, this really cute little girl, I really like her and I think she's going to be very good. But the fact that she's sort of found Henry and it's going to be a similar scenario to what happened with Emma and Henry, obviously, you know, there's a curse has happened here, and that is why we're separated from the rest of the characters, presumably. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it, but I'm just going to have to wait and see. As long as Captain Swan have had a nice, happy time, possibly a baby, very much up for a Captain Swan baby. As long as they have been happy and they get to be happy again in the end, and everyone who we've seen get this happy ending at season 6, for them to all get their happy ending permanently, forever, that's what I care about. I love that they've all got slightly different versions of what a happy ending is. For Emma, it's that she finally completely believes in herself. She believes that she's worthy of being the saviour. She believes that she is worthy of love. She believes that, you know, she's in the right place and that she's not frightened and going to run away. She's married to the man that, you know, has been proven to be true love. She has got this connection with her family. She's got Henry. She's got this friendship with Regina. Everything has fallen into place for her, and that's her happy ending. For Killian, obviously, his was finding that he could fall in love again and give up his revenge, and now he's got Emma, but not only Emma, this entire family that's come into his life through her. For Snow and Charming, they've got each other back. They've got both their children in their lives, and you know, they're getting to live finally a normal life. For Henry, he's got both his mums there. He's got the family that he's always wanted, and he's finally got to a point where he really believes that the danger's over and this part of the story's finished. For Regina, I just really love that for Regina, because I think it's interesting that Emma and Regina's storylines were kind of opposite, if that makes sense. Emma spent her entire life running away from the idea of love because she was too frightened and she felt like it was never going to work out for her. Whereas Regina spent all these years fighting to get revenge against someone who took love away from her. So it was like Emma was running away from the idea of it, and Regina was so fueled by the idea of it that she ended up ruining her life and the lives of a lot of other people. So I actually think that it was really interesting that by the end of it, we got to see that Emma's happy ending involved opening herself up and finding that, and Regina's happy ending at this point was about accepting that love can come in lots of different forms, and that accepting a family in whatever shape or form it takes is what matters. So even though she'd lost loves in her life before, realising that she could be a happy person with her son and with her family without that, I think was really lovely. Like, she didn't need that relationship to define her, kind of, like. And I love that we got to see that in the Enchanted Forest, Robin proposing to that Regina was just perfect, and a lovely nice way to kind of get some closure for that storyline, and I loved that, and I'm so glad they did that. But I do also really appreciate that for Regina they chose to go down the line of being like that connection with her sister that she'd been missing her whole life, and that family with Snow and Charming and with Emma and Henry and Killian and everyone coming together. That's what she needed, and she's forgiven herself for the things she's done and she's accepted who she is. I just think it's a lovely message. Okay, I've talked for a long time, like a long time. I'm going to have to do a lot of editing to get this video down to a reasonable size, but thank you so much for watching, guys. I really hope that you have enjoyed this video, and I really hope that you enjoyed the episode. Leave me a comment down below to let me know what you thought of it. I would love to have a chat about it. I know I'm like a week late in uploading this, but to be perfectly honest, I don't think I was emotionally ready to film it before now, so yeah, do leave me a comment below to let me know what you thought of the episode, and also what you think about season 7. But as I say, I'm going to be doing a separate video talking about that at some point soon. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up to let me know. I would really appreciate it. And if you would like to keep up to date with all of my videos, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye!